When we look at the slide of our democracy toward authoritarianism, it's easy to pinpoint specific instances where individuals or institutions failed to do their duty, failed to uphold the law, and contributed to the nightmare that we're all living now. I mean, I, for one, will place a significant portion of the blame on the shoulders of Merrick Garland, his meekness, his deference shown to Donald Trump, the way he slow-rolled justice and fucked the entire country. But we could also look to the Supreme Court and their immunity ruling. I mean, if we want to go even further back, we can look at Citizens United versus the FEC. We can look at the folks who didn't show up to vote for Hillary and resulted in the first Trump presidency that got us the horrible unitary executive theory version of the Supreme Court that we have now. There are innumerable instances where you can point to specific people. Judge Aileen Cannon and the documents case in Florida. Mitch McConnell not supporting impeachment, conviction, and removal during Trump's first term. There are so many ways where you can pinpoint individuals or institutions that did not have moral fortitude, did not have courage to do the right thing, and contributed to what we are living now, this mess that we are currently mired in, and all of the suffering that has resulted. But, maybe it's because I'm an optimist. Maybe it's because despite all of this, I still very much want to believe in the goodness of the majority of people. It's just as easy to make a conscious effort to focus on the people who are doing good, who are holding the line, the people who are upholding the law and are doing their job in the face of intimidation. All those other folks who didn't have the courage to do the right thing, all those other folks who prioritize their own wealth and comfort, who prioritize their political advantage that they thought they would get, all of those other folks who were so worried about appearance, were so worried about being strong and standing up and how that might make them unpopular. All of those folks who buckled under the pressure, right? We don't actually need to focus on them. We need to learn from what they've done and how not to repeat it, but we can look at all of these folks who are also under the same kind of pressure, enduring the same intimidation, and have chosen to stand up and do the right thing. All of the people who understand the risks and have chosen not to be complicit in fascism. The folks who have shown that they have a spine. The folks who have said, I will undertake personal risk to myself in order to do the right thing. We've got to focus on those folks and draw courage from them because we also, as regular, ordinary, everyday Americans, we also are required to take on some measure of risk right now. Everybody has to stand up against the intimidation and hold the line. And I don't know that there is that much utility in looking at all the cowards and spinning ourselves up in anger about all of the ways that they have failed us. I do think there is a tremendous amount that we can gain from focusing on the folks who are doing the right thing. And I'm sorry that my camera's a little bit wiggly. I'm still resting in bed with my foot up because I broke my toe. But I specifically want to point to somebody who has done a tremendous amount over the last 3-4 days to uphold the rule of law, to hold the fascists accountable, and to say, no, I'm not going to let you get away with doing whatever you want in violation of the Constitution. And that person right now is Elizabeth McDonough, who is the Senate parliamentarian. McDonough is an attorney who has been serving as the Senate parliamentarian since 2012. By the way, she is the first woman to ever hold the job of parliamentarian. And if you're wondering, what is a parliamentarian? The Senate and the House both have parliamentarians whose job it is to advise leadership, either the Speaker of the House or the majority leader in the Senate, about the rules that those houses are supposed to be following. So in particular, when we're looking at McDonough, she serves under John Thune. And it's her job to interpret the standing rules of the Senate and the parliamentary procedures and make sure that the Senate is adhering to them. In particular, one key element is at play right now. So we are looking at the House and the Senate trying to push through this big budget reconciliation bill. And a really key role of the parliamentarian is to let the Senate know what they can and cannot do in a reconciliation bill, because any changes that they are trying to make under that reconciliation provision must fall under the Byrd Rule. The Byrd Rule in the Senate allows certain budget legislation to basically get fast-tracked. It can get passed by a simple majority, avoiding a filibuster. Right, this is what Chuck Schumer and several Democrats in the Senate gave up. They gave up their power to filibuster when they allowed this reconciliation bill to go through. So now the budget bill can get passed by a simple majority, and Republicans have a simple majority in the Senate. However, they can't cram whatever they want into it. It is the job of the parliamentarian to make sure that edits and additions to this bill fall under the rules of what is allowed in a budget bill. And while we know that this budget reconciliation bill is going to do all kinds of terrible things like giant cuts to Medicaid, SNAP, Medicare as well, the Republicans have been trying to sneak in all kinds of nasty shit in this bill that does not belong there. We know that Republicans are not bound by ethics. They don't actually care about governing. They don't actually care about following the laws and procedures that they have sworn to uphold. So it is the job of the parliamentarian to say, no, 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 you cannot put this provision in this bill. Absolutely not. And guess what? Elizabeth McDonough has been doing that. She has been standing strong. She has come out with several different rulings over the last several days where she has said, this thing that you Republicans have tried to sneak into this bill, this is not allowed under the rules of the Senate. It's not allowed. It is a violation of the Byrd rule, and you can't do this in a budget bill. Over and over and over again, she is shutting down Republicans. And in the next video, I want to talk about a number of the ways that she has done that. But here, I want to highlight one specific instance. One thing that really, really baffles me is that we have seen Republicans in Congress since day one of this regime freely hand over their constitutional authority, their power to the Trump regime. They have abdicated their responsibility. That's just always been really confusing to me because we know that so many Republicans in both houses of Congress love their control, love their power. And I just have not been able to wrap my brain around why it is that they have handed it all over to Trump. We know that so many of them aren't actually Christo-fascists. We know that a lot of them most of them do not like Elon Musk and the things the technocrats are trying to do. Like, a lot of it has not made sense to me. Why are you freely handing over all of your power and authority to Trump on a platter? Why are you refusing to check him? Why do you think that you must all be aligned behind him? He is stripping away your power. He is making you in Congress irrelevant month by month. He is making you less and less powerful, less and less relevant. And you're just like, you're letting it happen. And again, I understand there are those ideologues that truly believe in whatever horrible, dictatorship that Trump wants to install. And there are those Republicans who are telling us we're getting bullied, we're getting intimidated, we're getting threats to our family, we're getting threatened with being primaried. Looking at Congressman Massey, who is a Republican who is standing up to Trump. Trump just yesterday said, well, I'm going to primary him. Okay, well, all of you Republicans who say that you can't stand up to Trump because you're getting death threats or whatever, look at Thomas Massey. He got threatened with a primary. So is that what it is? You're afraid of losing your jobs? You're giving up all of your power and making your job irrelevant because you are afraid of getting primaried and losing your job. So to me, it's not really made sense why a certain portion of them are going along with what Trump wants. And it's not made sense to me why they are adding all these provisions that make Congress less and less relevant and expand Trump's power. And in particular, they added this one provision that basically made Trump a king. And the parliamentarian has said that violates Senate rules. This cannot be in this bill. The provision would basically make it impossible for anybody to sue the Trump regime. It was trying to make the courts irrelevant. We know authoritarians very much fear the rule of law, and that means that they fear the courts. They fear being held accountable for violating the law. And one of the main mechanisms through which we hold these folks accountable in our court system is through lawsuits. And so Republicans tried to sneak in this measure that would basically make it impossible for anybody to sue Trump. If you were trying to get an emergency court order, a temporary restraining order, or a preliminary injunction against the federal government, they were going to require you to post a bond that covered all the costs and damages that could potentially be sustained by the federal government if you lost your case. Currently, judges have TROs and injunctions for a multitude of illegal shit the Trump regime has tried to do so far. Selling public land, shaking down law firms, deporting immigrants they have no right to deport, dismantling the Constitution and getting rid of birthright citizenship. I mean, there's a huge, huge list. Firing federal workers, canceling grant funding illegally, et cetera, et cetera. If this rule were to go through that the Republicans are trying to sneak in, none of those lawsuits could have been brought unless people, including individuals, were able to put up potentially billions of dollars. I mean, this kind of shady shit should make it glaringly apparent that Republicans do not care about the law. They don't care about their constituents. They don't care about justice. The parliamentarian said, no, you all cannot do this. By the way, Iowa Senator Chuck Grassley, who's 90-something years old, had a temper tantrum over getting told no about this, because he's the one who crammed this provision into the bill. It should be really apparent to everybody that Republicans do not want a democracy. Our favorite line is the courts have no constitutional authority to do XYZ, when that is precisely what the court's constitutional role is. It is Congress that is not fulfilling their constitutional role, is betraying the American people and attempting to install a dictator. And this time the parliamentarian said no.